Am I making that clear to you? All right. So cations are what? Positive or negative? Cations are positively charged ions formed by the loss of electrons. Is that right? Anions are negatively charged ions formed by the gain of electrons. Did we say that cations are smaller? Do you remember drawing the periodic table? Cations are smaller because they lose an electron. When compared to neutral sodium, sodium has how many circles? Sodium has 3 circles, 3 energy rings. Is that right? When it loses an electron, there's only 1 electron in the outermost shell. Is that right? When it loses that electron, how many rings does it now have? 2. So the size becomes smaller. Is that right? Anions are always larger than the parent atom. They gain an electron. Let's look at fluorine. Fluorine has how many shells? Only 2. Is that right? And it has a total of 9 electrons, which means it has 7 valence electrons. Does it need 1 more? So, when it becomes F minus, it's still 2, but what happens to the circle? It gets bigger to accommodate the incoming electron. Yes or no? And there is electron-electron repulsion. Is that right? And the size gets bigger. Now, turn to the next page. We are now interested in isoelectronic atoms and ions. What does the word iso mean? Iso means what? Same numbers. Is that right? Let's look at these elements. All right? How do you look at these elements? You have to first look at a noble gas. Let's say I'm looking at neon. Which element will gain an electron and become similar to neon? Fluorine. Which element will gain 2 electrons and become similar to neon? Oxygen. Which element will lose an electron and become similar to neon? Sodium. Which element will lose 2 electrons and become similar to neon? Magnesium. Do you understand this? The question is, what about their size? What will happen to the size of these ions? All right? This is easy. Lithium and lithium plus is smaller. Is that right? Lithium plus is smaller. O minus 2 is larger. And you can draw the Bohr model and all that. Let's look at these 3 elements here. Hydrogen minus helium and lithium. Hydrogen becomes hydrogen minus. So how many electrons does it have? 2. 2 electrons. Helium has how many electrons when it's neutral? 2 electrons. Lithium plus. If it's just lithium, it's 3. If it's lithium plus, how many electrons does it have? 2. Now, we've got to compare the sizes. Which is small, which is big. They all have 2 electrons. Iso means same number of electrons. Yes or no? Let's look at hydrogen. Hydrogen only has 1 circle, correct? Only 1 circle. How many protons does hydrogen have? 1 proton in the middle. Right? Now there are 2 electrons. 1 proton is attracting how many electrons? It's minus, so how many are there? 2. Helium has only one ring, but how many protons does it have? 2 protons. How many electrons is it attracting? 2. Let's look at lithium. Lithium, to begin with, had 2 rings. Is that right? But then it lost a ring. Yes or no? And therefore, it now has only 1 ring. And how many protons does it have? 3 protons. How many electrons does it have? In which case do you think the size will be the smallest? 1 proton, 2 proton, 3 protons. Which will pull the most? Which will pull the 2 electrons the most? Lithium, because it has 3. So what will this size be? This size is the smallest. Do you guys agree? Because it has 3 protons. Right? In this case, what about this size? Will it be the largest? Will it be the largest? Because how many protons are attracting? Only 1 proton. Do you understand this? So 1 proton attracting 2 electrons will be the biggest cloud. 3 protons attracting 2 electrons will be the smallest cloud. This is the largest and this is the smallest. Do we understand this? Shall we do another example? Shall we do one more example? Tell me an element that is very similar to neon, that gains an electron. Which is that? Fluorine what? -1, -2, what is it? Fluorine -1. Remember, neon has how many rings? 2 rings. How many protons in the middle? 10 protons. 2 in the first, 8 in the second. Is everybody doing this with me? Are you doing it with me? All right. So what did you say gains an electron? Cl minus. Cl minus has how many rings? 2 rings? Is it in the second period? Are we good? 2 rings? How many protons in the middle? How many protons in the middle? Is it Cl minus, which will be similar to neon? Yeah, so which will be similar to neon? Fluorine. Okay, very good. It's fluorine and not chlorine. Okay, so that is correct. Fluorine minus, right? And how many protons in fluorine? Protons? 9. 9 in the middle. If it is minus, how many total electrons? 10. So 2 in the first, 10 in the second. Is that right? Everybody good? What is the element that will lose an electron and be similar to neon? Sodium. Has sodium lost a ring? Has sodium lost a ring? How many protons in the middle? 11 protons. It's lost. It's Na plus. Therefore, it is still 10 electrons. Which is the largest and which is the smallest? Which is the largest, which is the smallest? Largest will be fluorine because how many protons are attracting how many electrons? 9 protons are attracting 9 electrons. In this case, 10 protons are attracting 10 electrons. In this case, 11 protons are attracting 10 electrons. In which case will the attraction be the most? When it's 11 protons, it is the most. Is that right? Most attraction. Most attraction will lead to what? Smallest size. If they ask you such a question, do you think you can answer it? Do we all understand it? The cation will be the smallest, the anion will be the largest, and the neutral atom will be the middle if they're isoelectronic, correct? Do we understand this? Okay. I stop at this point, all right? I did not record this. I did record it. So I'm going to stop.